Next, I'd like to look at some jazz fills, and more specifically, brushes. I think brushes at times have kind of got a bum rap, kind of like the country and the heavy metal. People think, there's nothing to it. It's brushes, just like jazz, something like this. That's one element of brushes. I'd be saying like, okay, you have your drumsticks and you can just hit quarter notes. There's so many things you can do with brushes. I auditioned for this one gig a while back. It was a big European tour and everything, and I was pretty excited about it. And I really love the dynamics of drums. That's kind of something that I just really gravitate. Whenever I do a tune, I try to think of the dynamics and colors and shaping the tune and supporting in that. And they wanted to do this one tune that I haven't heard before, and I thought, okay, I'll get my brushes out, and I had my mallets there and my sticks kind of ready to develop the song. It was more of a slow rock thing, and I had the brushes out, and the guy's like, no, I don't want any of that jazz stuff. And it was kind of like, I didn't say anything, but, through his ignorance, he just wasn't really opening to hearing what is possible with brushes. And, well, needless to say, I didn't get the gig, but that's beside the point. It's just, I don't want us to be so limited in our thinking and ignorant about it, about what is possible with brushes. There's so many things in your different approaches. Obviously, there's the regular swishing, like this. Which is harder to do with sticks, right? So it's great to have brushes. Just as a side note, actually, this is one thing I do like to have for the traditional. Because of the angle of the brush, it sits nicely on the snare like that, which gives a nice texture, like this. So it just sits nicely like that. When you do match grip, you just have to have it bent in a little bit. So it's maybe not as comfortable, but I have more strength and finesse with match grip, so I choose to do match grip. With the brushes, usually people think light playing, but with this shoulder of the brush, you can really get some good backbeat. So you can easily work out different types of beats and fills with the brushes. They do have less attack, obviously, on the brush end. So if you're playing a beat like this, the hi-hat's not going to come in as much. But then what you want to do is just substitute it for something else. And then by doing the beats, though, you can do little swishes with the brush, like this. That's a bit more kind of shuffly, triplet, happy stuff. But you can get really quite dark with them and more meaty, like this. So again, it needs to be a contextual thing, Brushes aren't going to work for every sitting, but it's nice to have that resource so that when you're playing with a band, you want a tune that has more of a different flavor, just grab your brushes and try to work out a different pattern as long as you're respectful of the mood and the dynamics of the tune. Now with the brushes, you can basically go through every fill in the encyclopedia with the brushes. What you want to do, instead of playing just your regular downstrokes, you can do that as well. But with the brushes, they have that added flavor of the swish, right? So even if I'm doing straight 16ths, I won't be going like this. With the brushes and their capability, I would just slide it a bit more, give it more of legato feel, a smoother feel like this. So now you can go through all the fills with the brushes, all on the toms and everything, and use everything that way. I'd like to do one of the fills now from the encyclopedia, and it's nice when there's rests in the fills, because I can do a little bit of a slide and a slope. I'll show you on this fill here. Just on the snare in triplets, there's a note on the 1, 8th note rest, triplet 8th note rest, accent on the let, and then on the 2, rest, accent again on the let, and then 3 triplet 4. So it goes like this. So you can see when I hit the strokes, I just kind of drag it in. Okay, now I'll play it with a beat. Now since it's brushes and it's in triplet, I'll play it with a jazz beat. Now again, when dealing with triplets, you want to watch your sticking, because if you're doing a right hand lead, it's going to be the rights on the 1 and 3, the left will be hitting it on the 2 and 4. So when I do this, I kind of like to have rights on the downbeats. So it goes right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. Now experiment with which one you feel more comfortable leading with. I do suggest getting used to both of them because you're going to be that much more flexible of a player. So now I'll play this example with some music. The next fill I'd like to explain to you with brushes is just 8th note triplets again. There's an 8th note on 1, and then the let, 2, let. Then there's that quarter note rest because it's a triplet, so it's 2 8th notes, triplets. And then on the let of 3, 4, and then the let of 4. So the actual pattern without any swishing goes like this. Now, if I swish it, it'd go like this. Okay, I'll play that with a beat. Basically approaching the brushes in that, whenever I have a shot on the let, I like to have it on the left hand, downbeats with the right. If I'm doing a pattern with 16ths, I'll have the E's and the A's on the left, so even if there's a break or a rest, I kind of like to keep the hands consistent that way. It makes it easier to keep a good sense of time. So now let's try it with some music. Whenever using sticks or brushes, sometimes I like to use the butt end of the stick. It gives me a little bit more presence to the drum. And same with the brushes. Sometimes I like to use the butt ends. If you're got some sort of ballad rock thing going on, you can do a nice little swish on the cymbal like this. It can be a very nice color, or you can move it around the cymbal like this. And just playing regular beats, because if you play the brush up here like this, If you do it with the butt end, it can sound like this. So it'll give you more attack, and that way you can play stuff like this. So there you go. You don't want to be limited to a conventional way of thinking. I remember seeing an article one time with Paul Wertical, and he was actually playing with knitting needles and just, you know, the different attack and feel that those would give. And I wouldn't suggest doing that on the next heavy metal track, but I mean, you know, he's being very creative, getting outside of the box and just not being limited to a conventional way of thinking. Now I'd like to do some jazz with some sticks. On our first jazz fill, just obviously based off of triplets, floor tom, eighth note rest, 2 snares, crash with the snare, quarter note rest, but that's in the triplet, so it's 2 eighth note triplets, snare, first tom, crash with the snare. So just the fill sounds like this. So let me play that in a beat. Now with some music. Now, on my next jazz fill, I'm just dealing with flams. The pattern is eighth note rest, 2 eighth notes, all in triplets, eighth note rest, eighth note, quarter note rest, eighth note, quarter note rest, eighth note. So I'll play just the pattern for you on the snare. It sounds like this. Now with the flams, the left hand stays on the snare. These are all right hand flams, so the right hand is high. Left hand is first. The flams just go all the way around the drum. So you got flam on the snare, flam, first tom, snare twice, second tom is snare, floor tom, snare, flam on the snare. So it goes like this. Now I'll play that with a beat. And now with the music. On the next jazz fill, starts on the second tom, eighth note rest, second tom again with the bass drum, just kind of pushes it a bit more on that let. Quarter note rest, flam on the snare, quarter note rest, flam on the first tom, quarter note rest, crash with the floor tom. Sometimes I like to do that, hit the crashes with the toms as opposed to the kick, just kind of gives it a little bit different presence about it. So I'll play just the fill. Now I'll play it with a beat. And now with the music.